Hello, everyone. Today is May the 28th, Memorial Day. Uh, I'm here in Michigan. It's a beautiful day outside, about 90 degrees or so. And I just got back from seeing Solo, Star Wars, a Star Wars story. My expression is basically my feelings about this film. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Juanita, you know me for 30 something years. Uh, Look behind me. Look at this shelf. I am a Star Wars aficionado, if I'm pronouncing that word correctly. I followed Star Wars literally since I was 9 years old. Seen it on the screen and on the big screen when it first came out back in 1977. So I'm part of the original Star Wars generation or genre, and I've even seen in 1999 when the Star Wars prequels came out. Of course, I was part of that particular phase, and all those films were done by George Lucas himself. Say what you want about them, there was a lot of passion, a lot of adrenaline, a lot of energy invested into making those films. Even the production of the movies themselves were very exciting. I don't know what's become of Star Wars now. This new Star Wars generation and new movies, episodes 7, 8, and 9, and then the little stories in between. Except for Rogue One. I love Rogue One. Star Wars to me has become like a man and a woman married together for, say, 20, 30 something years. And the marriage is just going sour. The man stays in the marriage just for the sake of, I guess it's cheaper to keep her, or because it looks good in social media or in front of friends and family. But then you just get tired of the same old, same old. And that to me is what Star Wars sadly has become. It's become like a marriage that is excuse me, time to head to divorce court, because I can't. I mean, I seen this movie, and I read when they first came up with the idea of doing it, and I thought it was a bad idea. I never thought that Han Solo was a character that was necessarily worthy of his own story, because the Star Wars itself is a canon that focuses mainly on the Skywalker family, and also about the Rebel Alliance versus the Empire, the Jedi versus the Sith, and any other characters that surround that particular canon are just pawns. And you don't take a pawn and then try to elevate or escalate them into a king. Han Solo himself, according to the books, which I read as a child, my mother bought me all the books as a kid, and I read them from cover to cover. They were written by Brian Daley, the late great Brian Daley. Han Solo's a criminal. He's a gangster, a thug, basically. A thug with a spaceship that looks very fancy, traveling around with a giant Sasquatch or a Wookiee called Chewbacca. He just so happened to become a good guy because he hung around people. He had a moral compass that helped him to help other people to, in this case, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia, to overcome and fight against evil elements of the galaxy that would eventually come up against him and his lifestyle and what he was doing. That's Han Solo, to me, in a nutshell. I'm not saying that the character should not be explored, because, again, Brian Daley wrote 3 very good novels about the character, which, to me, is what Disney, who's now in charge of Lucasfilm, should have done. They should have taken those stories and put them on the silver screen. But Disney has done away with what's called the Expanded Universe, or the EU, which those books were part of, and come up with their own ideas of what Star Wars should be. And to me, those ideas have just been very, very bad. And Star Wars has become like Star Trek, and it's become like a run-of-the-mill. Anyone who wants to write a Star Wars story, if you feel you can do it better than the original creator, George Lucas, just do it. And if we think it's a good idea, we'll finance it and put it on the silver screen. And that's what's happening. And again, it's just very disappointing to see that. Something that I grew up with and I love very much. And please don't get me wrong. I'm an open-minded guy. I'm very open-minded to change. Some changes are good, not necessarily bad. But some things are better left alone. And in this case, I think there's a formula that worked with episodes 4, 5, and 6, and also work with episodes 1, 2, and 3. That just the magic was there, and it's like the magic and the mojo of Star Wars is gone. Even for those who complained about Jar Jar Binks and the tone of episodes 1 through 3, which were the Star Wars prequels, they were still very, very monumental and very satisfactory situations and characters that occurred in those films that made you look at Star Wars, in a very magical way. So much so that it even resonated in this film that I just seen. That they brought a character that surprised me into this movie that it took me off guard, and I was glad to see. Again, this is a non-spoiler review, so I can't say who that character really is. But for those who are interested in seeing the movie, and if you know anything about Star Wars, if you don't, then when you see the character, it'll probably mean nothing to you. But when George Lucas made Star Wars, he really, again, invested imagination beyond imagination into the creation of these films that made them stand out beyond any other science fiction movie that had been done before and after. And that's from 1977 all the way up to 1990. I think it was the last Star Wars movie that came out under his name and his direction was in 2003, and that was Revenge of the Sith. So I don't know. They're trying to follow the Marvel formula, and I'm also a comic book collector. As you all know, I do my postings for Comic Book Wednesday every Wednesday. But Star Wars, again, is canon. That means it's a straight shot that revolves around a particular story or centerpiece that everyone is working, excuse my greasy face, everyone is working towards a particular goal in that particular storyline. Comic books are not the same. And for instance, with Marvel Comics, you have Spider-Man and Iron Man and Captain America. Each of those characters has their own representation. They all have their own individuality, and they all bring something different to the table. So much so that they can have their own stories before they actually team up as a group and become, say, the X-Men or the Avengers. That has resonated through all comics for years, and that's why Marvel is so successful with what they're doing. And they can actually take those stories and create a story arc, and out of that story arc, make a film, which is what Marvel has been doing. And again, that's why they've been so successful. DC Comics has tried to do the same thing, but unfortunately has not been so successful because, to me, I think they have the same kind of people with a mindset, a similar mindset to those who are doing these new Star Wars films. And by the way, watching this movie, I could hardly see anything. It was so freaking dark, which reminded me of a DC film. Everything is dark all the time. You can't freaking see anything. Like, could you shed a little light on the subject here? The characters are non-monumental. They're not people that I want to remember. It's not like a Darth Maul or Darth Vader or Luke Skywalker or Han Solo or Princess Leia. They gave them names like Rose and Finn and, nothing that stands out or has any type of relevance or significance at all. In the story, I don't even know what was going on in the story. The Kessel Run is a very popular storyline within the Star Wars canon, and the way they did it, it was just so mediocre. It was done with such mediocrity that it was sad. And I think that pretty much I'm done with Star Wars. Anything after Episode 6 I'm done with, except for Star Wars Rebels, the animated series, and Star Wars Clone Wars, which is actually right now on Netflix. And anytime that you have an animated series that's done better than a live-action movie, that is a problem. That's a problem. That's bad. In an animated movie or animated TV series can be done better than live action, then there's something missing in a tremendous way. And all I see are just a bunch of corporate heads who are looking to make money and merchandise off of a namesake. No story that's worth really following or watching whatsoever. And I'm sorry, Latoya, I know you said that you enjoyed the film. I'm sorry to throw shade on it. Again, I'm a Star Wars fan, so it's not like I'm wanting to throw shade on the movie. And I was hoping that the critics were wrong, that I would walk out and say, hey man, these guys didn't know what they're talking about. Just want to criticize something just to open their mouths. I'm not doing that. Again, look behind me. Look around. I'm a Star Wars fan for real. Most of those guys who are making Star Wars films, and even some who are making comic book movies, they probably never even read a comic book in their life, never been to a Comic Con, probably were even bullies in high school who used to bully the nerds. All right, I'm tripping now, but seriously, very disappointed. I'm sorry, didn't like it at all. I only want to see it one time, and I probably won't even buy it on DVD. Just like I didn't buy Star Wars: The Force Awakens or Star Wars: The Last Jedi. You can keep it. That's for this new generation who plays video games and has their head stuck in social media all the time. I read books. I read comic books, and I'm glad that I do. So glad that I do. And I'm going to stick with the original Star Wars saga under the Lucasfilm 20th Century Fox production, and that's it. All right. Well, that's my review of Solo. Peace out.